Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Fish Bytes, the Miami Herald's Miami Marlins podcast. I'm Jordan McPherson. He's Andre Fernandez. We got some news to discuss, right?
Yes, we do. And I mean, something that I think quietly we all sort of kind of figured was coming, but at the same time, you know how it is. Then when the reality hits you, it's like, oh, wow, okay, so now it's real. Yeah, but, Don Mattingly won't be back. And we suspected that as soon as especially as soon as this season kind of went sideways and started going the route it's taken, you kind of figured that they might make a change. And, a lot to unpack there over the past few years, and just the way that, unfortunately, not just this season, but things haven't turned out the way they would have hoped the past 4 years, and really just never materialized the way that the franchise was hoping that by now maybe this would have been a team that was at the very least contending to be a playoff team on a consistent basis. I mean, yeah, people will point to the shortened season as a blip, but that's really what it was, because now look, the way we're at. But Donnie's been, same as he was as a player, class act, steady guy throughout this whole thing, and been a good presence there for a while now, and the longest tenured manager they've ever had. It's funny, after all the years of the running joke was they trade managers every 2 years. Well, look, he stuck it out longer than most, and probably through one of the most difficult times that they've been able to that they've had to go through, really, as a franchise. I mean, there's been some rough patches in the history of this franchise, but this is definitely one of the rough ones for sure. And we'll see what's next for him. You're talking like we're talking right now. We're not just looking at him as Marlins manager. This is one of the all-time greats in baseball, and a guy who can offer a lot to a team, whether it's, even if it's not in a managerial capacity. Let's say if the next step is as a hitting coach, an instructor, you name it, or just, in some way, a wealth of baseball knowledge that would benefit, any other franchise, if that is what he chooses to do. And, personally, I wish him the best, because he's always been great to me. He's always, and I don't like crossing that line and saying that too much, but, I've always admired and respected him since I watched him with the Yankees as a kid and all of that. And, it was great covering him the years that I did.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Don Mattingly, the Marlins, they, on Sunday, prior to their series finale with Nats, mutually announced that neither side seeking the contract extension, which, as Dre mentioned, felt inevitable. It was just a matter of what the timing was going to be. Were they going to announce it during the season? Were they going to wait until October 6th, the day after the season ended, to make it formal? And the logic for doing it now, it made sense. Again, the Marlins know that the season is all but done for them. They're at 90 losses now, or 89, 90 losses at this point, with 9 games left. There was an off day. There was an off day after the announcement to let everybody sort of marinate on the news. And it gives Mattingly the chance to not have to be rushed to say the goodbyes, to do all of that, especially with a few of the guys in the clubhouse. You look at Miguel Rojas, for example, who has been with Mattingly all 7 years here. Their relationship predates their time with the Marlins. Mattingly was Rojas' manager in LA when Rojas made his debut. And like Dre mentioned, with just the timeline of Mattingly's tenure here, you look through everything they went through. He comes in 2016. He has Jose Fernandez as his ace. He has D. Gordon as his leadoff hitter. You have that outfield of Giancarlo Stanton, Marcelo Ozuna, Christian Yelich, with Ichiro as his 4th outfielder. JT Realmuto is an up-and-coming catcher. And yes, the minor league system was basically non-existent, but they had the pieces there. And you fast forward to year 2, and everything that happened with Jose, you fast forward to what happened with the Jose Fernandez stuff and his passing, and the fact that, again, it hit us that Sunday when the announcement was made was 6-year anniversary of Jose's death in the boating accident, him and the 2 others. It felt odd when the connection was made with the timing, but then even Mattingly said when he talked with Miguel Rojas pregame, and he went, and Rojas started talking about Jose, and Mattingly went, wow, completely forgot that was today. we're really doing this today. I'm really doing this today. And it was just like that, the secondary lingering effect of that. And the fact that he helped keep the team afloat through that. After that, he helped keep them aboard through the ownership change, through the COVID pandemic where they had the outbreak and were able to get through to the playoffs in the 60-game season, keeping everybody level-headed as much as he could after the lockout ended with a rush spring training. And again, having to be that guy who, when the rebuild began, having to find ways to keep players upbeat, playing for a purpose, even when they knew those early seasons were going nowhere. He was that steady, even-keeled, authentic guy who was able to keep people pushing towards a goal, even when the goal looked out of reach, and even as of now, 5 years later, still looks like it's out of reach, or at least it's still a distance away from when they were hoping that this year would finally be that year. And that's why after 2019, even after a season that went to 105 losses, they extended him, because they felt like he could be that manager who could keep the clubhouse afloat for that next push.
Right. And we wrote about that. Remember at the beginning of the season how that was rare. Remember when we did a story comparing the rebuilds in recent years that have succeeded, and almost in every case, pretty much, the managerial change came right when the team took the leap into being either a playoff team or pretty darn close. That didn't happen here. They decided we're gonna at least give it a shot with him and see what happens. But yeah, the irony wasn't lost on me. I can tell you that on Sunday morning, I mean, coincidentally enough, it was on a Sunday when Jose died. And because I'll never forget the morning getting ready to go to a Dolphins game, and the news breaks. Yesterday morning, coincidentally, I went to help cover for the Herald. I helped cover the Dolphins game against Buffalo. And that's what was on my mind as I was driving on the stadium. It was like 6 years ago. Instead of driving to this place, I was at home and then driving to the ballpark because of what happened. And I had the image in my head of, and then when the Mattingly news broke during the game yesterday, the image in my head was of Mattingly, seeing him like I've never seen him before, never saw him before or since, and hopefully never again, just sobbing away like everybody was that morning, just distraught completely of, just something horrible that had happened. And then to think that 6 years later, it really brought to mind how close that team was to maybe doing something. Maybe it wouldn't have lasted extremely long. Maybe it would have been like a 2-year run or whatever. But they had something there, and it wasn't that far off. And that's the shame of it too, because that was the best chance to really, I think since then, this process hasn't worked, and not fully, not to the way that they would have, not even close to where they would have hoped. But that was to me, that was the window, when you had that core together. When you look back on it now, what a core it was. And, those guys still, I mean, Yelich, goes on, becomes an MVP himself. And, Stanton still launching missiles into the stands when he's healthy, it's really a shame, because we talk about Cy Young and Sandy potentially winning the Cy Young this year. Well,
Jose,
if number 16 had lived, I guarantee you he would have won one of those. So,
yeah. And then you look at, again, what transpired afterwards with the rebuild, which, again, Mattingly did not come to Miami expecting to have to maneuver through one of those. His goal was, after being in New York as a player and a coach, and then being in LA as a coach and a manager, two of the organizations that with the highest payrolls, he knew going to Miami, the challenge was more constructing the roster. And when he came in, like we said, he had the group. And then it was learning what it is to basically see a team that doesn't really generate the payroll to have to build something from the bottom up. And he had to deal with that side of it for 5 years. And as the main thing was, as we saw this year, end of June, early July, they were a game out. They were a game under 500. They were in that wild card race. And who knows what would have happened if, again, this is going through the hypotheticals, if Jazz stayed healthy, if Soler stayed healthy, if they made that one extra acquisition or swapped some of the acquisitions that they made in the offseason. Who knows? Mattingly may still be here. They may have decide to figure things out. But at the end of the day, as general manager Kim Ng said when we got to talk with her on Sunday, it's results-based. It's a results-based industry, and it's at the matter. Let me get the exact quote from her. We're an outcome-based industry. I think there was a lot of reflection that went on the last couple months on everybody's part, and Mattingly's the decision to not bring Mattingly back. This isn't the last move that's being made. There are going to be more changes. I directly asked Kim Ng, going, when you look at the evaluation of where everything is, especially if the Marlins think that their record doesn't reflect what they have, which she directly said, does that mean more changes are coming up and down baseball operations? She simply said yes. So when you look at where they are, got to look at player development, where the Marlins, yes, they've been developing great pitching, but they've barely been the only player that I can say that they've purely developed from drafting to getting up to the big leagues, the only name I can think of off the top of my head is Nick Fortes, 4th-round pick from 2018. None of their other players who they've directly drafted from 2018 through now has legitimately proven they can hold that they are worthy of an opening day spot on next year's roster. Again,
and that's your sort of starting / backup catcher. So what does that tell you?
Exactly. And when you look at their best thing, they've been successful with getting guys through trades. Again, we saw Sandy Alcantara, we've seen Jazz, we've seen some of these other pieces that have worked out, but that's from them getting guys who have basically already been developed. They just have to do the final bit of seasoning before they get them up to the big leagues. So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that just shows you that, all those things that you said, like the Jazz injury and others, and injuries to others like Soler and Garcia and everybody else. Yes, that derailed the season, but it exposed the lack of depth behind it.
Exactly.
As an organization. And that's the problem, and that shows you that they weren't ready yet to take that next leap. Not really, because you can assume maybe they would have stayed afloat, but who knows? Because injuries are going to happen. Injuries happen to every team. I mean, there's a lot of contenders right now that have dealt with a rash of injuries and either went through it, took their lumps and rebounded, and now are in the playoffs anyway. And why? Because they had that reserve, and they didn't have that, and that's the issue. And that feeds right into what you were talking about, in terms of player development and whatnot, and moves that have been made. And then going back to Mattingly, I mean, he's the stabilizer, but to me, that's not just to me, but like really, that's what a manager is these days.
Yep.
As we've talked about, he's not. They're not calling the shots like they used to. So moving on from him, okay, you maybe want to have a new voice in the clubhouse, a little bit different. But in the end, that's not really in the grand scheme, it's the changes they're going to make or say they're going to make that are going to really dictate what direction this goes in the next few years.
Yep. And on that note, the next steps for the Marlins as they go through looking for the manager, no matter what, they have to have somebody in place by winter meetings when free agency stuff and all that really kicks off by December. Kim Ng, when asked about the timeline and if there's a prototypical profile they're looking for in the next manager, timeline, Kim Ng's direct quote was, "We want somebody in as soon as possible to get to know the players, to get to help with our offseason. But I will say this is a big decision for our organization. We have to make sure we take our time over the next however many weeks. We're going to be vetting and interviewing quite a number of candidates. We'll make sure to take our time. And as for the profile of the manager, quote, we're looking for somebody to help build a culture in which we are relentlessly putting ourselves in a position to win. There are a lot of layers. Through the vetting process, we'll get deeper." And she said that a manager with major league managing experience is important, but it's not necessarily a prerequisite, which is fitting considering the manager doesn't really make as many decisions as we've alluded to, with a lot of things being come down by the analytics department and what the front office wants to see. So there's
also kind of gives you a hint that they're not really going to bring in a big name manager.
Correct. Which basically seemed to be the hunch from the start.
Right. So for anyone with with anyone with grand hopes that you're going to land this headliner. I don't know. Not doesn't look like it.
Don't expect Joe Madden. Don't expect Madden or Girardi to be here.
Correct. That type. Yeah. So that doesn't mean they can't hire a good one, but it's going to be someone. They're going to go that route where it's going to be probably someone young, someone get their first chance. Maybe I would even suspect. So.
Yeah, someone like that, or someone who's been handling has the interim roles, or a high-end bench coach who's waiting in the wings. Yeah.
I mean, and again, it could be a good one, but again, let's frame it how it realistically is now in baseball, and what the role of that job has turned into now.
Yep, exactly. Yep. And then as for other things around the infield or on-field situation, Marlins Kim Eng said that they're going to be figuring out things potentially with on-field staff, how that changes with Mattingly gone. But one person who I would basically be saying roll the Brinks truck out to is Mel Stoudemire Jr. and make sure you find a way to keep him here with the way that, again, we talk about how great the pitchers are, but
it's not a big Brinks truck. I'm sorry.
No, whatever the biggest Brinks truck that they are able to bring out there.
The biggest duffel bag you can find, which is not going to be a huge luggage, but hey.
I didn't say that the truck was going to be full. I just said bring the truck out. Again, you got to make the appearance and everything, correct?
If they need the truck, that'll be impressive enough. So,
yeah, but regardless of everybody who they have in their staff, Mel Stoudemire Jr. is probably the one that looks like the close thing to a must keep from the staff if they're able to retain him.
Yeah, the job he's done with the pitching staff is phenomenal. I mean, you just see it. I mean, the deficiencies, really, the more glaring deficiencies on this franchise are elsewhere. The pitching, I mean, the one worry I have is just the pitching depth now in the minors not being as much as before, but it's not a critical issue like we've seen with the offense, obviously. So, yeah, and Mel's done a tremendous job. You could see it in the way a lot of these guys, I mean, not just Sandy, but there's other guys. Braxton Garrett's taken some leaps too and gotten better.
Jesus
Luzardo has, because he from what he was last year. Yeah, definitely. And now the one I'm curious about is Trevor Rogers. He had a bad season, injury, banged up, but at the same time struggled a lot. What can if Mel's there in this with the new manager, what can he do to maybe get this kid back on track, pitching kind of like he did last year as opposed to the struggles he had this year?
Definitely, yeah. And again, we're going to be able to see a lot more of this once the offseason starts up, which about a week away, Dre. We got 9 more games left to cover. 2 games against New York, against the Mets in New York, 4 games in Milwaukee, 3 games against the Braves, and then the real season happens for this Miami Marlins team.
The one thing I could say is, at the very least, you're on the road and have fun with that. And also the fact that, the opponents too. I mean, they're all playoff contenders or already clinched playoff teams. So at least you're going to get an up close view of some of the best teams that'll be in the postseason this year.
Yeah, I'll get to see the NL East race go down to the wire.
Yeah, Martin's going to have a say in the NL East race because they're really going to decide it depending on who beats, who they can spoil it for, maybe. Yeah,
and they could potentially either spoil or help the Brewers who are just outside with Philly for that last wild card spot. So they could they have a say in basically all 3 of the NL East teams competing. They have a say in all 3 of their races.
Yeah, the scrubby part of it is done now. They're done with the Nationals. Now it's all contenders during the last lap here. So.
Yep, and for the Sandy Alcantara Cy Young watch, just because I feel like we're obliged to touch upon it each week. He's pitching Friday in Milwaukee, and when I asked Don Mattingly if he's going to make that start on October 5th, the last game of the season, Mattingly said until they are told that Sandy has won the Cy Young Award, they are not having Sandy skip a start, so he will be on the mound October 5th. It's not necessarily, we don't know if he's going to be out there for a full game or if it's going to be more of like a ceremonial, let him pitch an inning and a third and let him get taken out to an ovation from the crowd. But at the very least, as of the time of this recording, Alcantara will be pitching that final game of the season.
Well, you want to see him, you don't want to see him duck the contenders. You want to see him take on these last 2. I mean, it's going to be the Brewers and the Braves. So if he can get if he can get wins on both of them and quality performances, to me, it's like lock it up. You know what I mean? Like don't leave a doubt. You know, you take him out now, you know, you're leaving that out there. You know, no, like step up and lock this thing up. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we'll be able to see if he can lock it up over the next week. But for now, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Fish Bites. Thanks so much again, as always, for tuning in. I'm Jordan McPherson. He's Andre Fernandez. We'll be back again next week for our final in-season episode of Fish Bites. Thanks so much.